So in this video, I'll show you the best Blackmagic Camera App settings for the iPhone 17 Pro Max that I use regularly to shoot videos. So let's start by setting up the action button to launch the Blackmagic Camera App. Now to do that, go to Settings, tap Action button, choose Shortcut, and then open the app and select Blackmagic Camera. Now a single press to the side will open up the app so you're ready to film right away. Next, let's look at the record settings, starting with the codec. The iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max now support Apple ProRes RAW, which captures raw sensor data. And this gives you flexibility in Final Cut Pro to adjust things like ISO, exposure, and color temperature without losing quality. The trade-off is that ProRes RAW files are huge, so it's really best for big productions like commercials or documentaries. For most creators, it's overkill, so HEVC H.265 is the more practical choice, delivering excellent quality with much smaller file size, which saves on storage and transfer time. That's also what I stick to most of the time when creating content. For bitrate, I choose max. A higher bitrate keeps more detail and reduces compression, so your videos look sharper and cleaner. For resolution, I stick to 4K. It gives you sharp, detailed video and the flexibility to crop or reframe in editing. For color space, I use Apple Log 2 on the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. When recording in Log, the image will look flat, desaturated, and low in contrast. Now, this is normal because Log compresses the tonal range to preserve details. Downside is that it's hard to judge exposure while filming. And to help you with that, you can use a preview LUT inside the Blackmagic Camera app to make the image look more neutral, and we'll cover that in just a bit. Now, on the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max, you can shoot Open Gate. Now, if you want to film in Open Gate, I select Apple ProRes RAW as the codec and choose Open Gate under Resolution and set the color space to Apple Log 2. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Open Gate, what it does is it records using the full sensor. So instead of being locked into a 16:9, you capture a taller image that gives you more flexibility to crop into different aspect ratios in post. Now, the downside is that Open Gate doesn't support stabilization, offers fewer lens option, and currently doesn't support HEVC in Apple Log, which means the file size are very large. Now, hopefully that will be added in the future update. But yeah, this is what I use when shooting in Open Gate, but for most of my work, I stick with the regular 4K in HEVC. So next up, I leave if media drop frames turned on. It alerts you if the iPhone can't record smoothly, which can happen if it overheats or the battery is low or storage is too slow or nearly full. This way you can catch problems right away instead of seeing them later. Now, in the camera settings, I enable vertical video. If you plan on shooting in both horizontal and vertical formats, turning this on will adjust the app's interface automatically and let you film in 16:9 or 9:16. When it is turned off, you can only film in landscape no matter how you hold your phone. For the trigger record indicator, I set it to beeper when filming myself with the rear camera. This plays a tone when recording starts, so I know it's rolling. If I want it to stay quiet, I set it to none. I also keep the option use volume or camera control button to record turned on, especially when filming myself. This allows me to just press either the volume button or the camera control button to start recording instead of tapping the screen. Lock white balance on record is another important setting. Now, once recording starts, the app locks white balance and tint values, preventing color shifts. Now, if you have a whiteboard like this, you can hold it in front of the camera for an even better result. For shutter measurements, I switch from speed to angle. When filming in a format like 16:9 landscape, I lock the orientation so it stays fixed. Without this, the phone might switch depending on how you hold it. Now, another important step is setting the reference source. By default, it is set to none, but I recommend switching it to internal. Phones normally use a variable frame rate, which saves space and improves performance, but can cause audio sync issues in editing. A constant frame rate keeps frames per second steady, so playback is smooth and editing is easier. For example, when I film at 25 frames per second, I get a true and stable 25 frames per second and not a fluctuating one. In the monitor settings, I enable display audio meters to monitor the audio when using something like the DJI Mic Mini. And this lets me confirm the sound is being recorded on the mic and helps prevent peaking or distortion when levels hit the red area. Next, I disable histogram because there are more accurate tools for checking exposure, which I'll cover later. Now, I keep display storage status on to track both internal and external storage. This way I always know how much space is left and can avoid running out. I also turn on display battery indicators so I can plan ahead, recharge in time, and avoid the phone shutting down in the middle of a shoot. Next, I disable record proxy because I edit directly with the original footage. Proxies are lower resolution copies that make playback smoother on slower computers, and they are also useful for cloud collaborations or sharing smaller files, but I don't need them in my workflow. Now, when it comes to saving clips, I save my clips inside the Blackmagic Camera app, which keeps them separated from the photo app. If I'm recording externally, for example, when filming in ProRes RAW, which requires an SSD, I plug in the Lexar Professional Go portable SSD. It is reliable and makes it easy to transfer files or even edit directly from the SSD on your iPhone. The SSD from Lexar offers up to 2 terabytes of storage, but for most people, 1 terabyte is enough. In the app, I just go to Files and set the destination folder where I want to store my media. With the Blackmagic Camera App 3.0, Blackmagic added function buttons for quick access to tools, and you can set up 3 of them. Now, in the camera viewer, you can tap the 3 dots to show the assigned function buttons. I love that they added this because the shortcuts really save time and make filming smoother. I set F1 to false color, which is the best tool for checking exposure. I set F2 to focus assist, which highlights what is in focus and is especially helpful when filming on a small screen. Finally, I set F3 to 50 frames per second so I can quickly switch to slow motion recording. Now, with the update, Blackmagic also added 11 built-in LUTs. To preview one, you go to the camera screen, tap the LUT icon, and turn it on. I usually have Rec 709 neutral selected as it converts the flat Apple lock color space to Rec 709, giving me a neutral and balanced image. You can also scroll through the creative LUTs to preview different looks. In the LUT manager, you can disable the ones you don't use. I usually stick just with the Rec 709 neutral LUT and turn the rest off. You can also import your own LUTs, whether purchased or custom made. It is possible to bake a LUT directly into your clips by enabling record LUT to clip, which gives you ready to use footage without grading. But when filming in Apple log, this defeats the purpose, so I leave it off and do my color grading inside Final Cut Pro for more control. Now, most of the time I film with the 24mm lens, which is the 1x lens. It's the highest quality of the 3 rear lenses. Now, for frame rate, I usually film at 25 frames per second or 24 if you're in the US. This is the standard movie frame rate and works well for talking head videos, interviews, or vlogs when you want a natural real-time motion. For slow motion, I switch to 50 frames per second or 60 if you're in the US. Higher frame rates are great for action, B-roll, or sports, and they also make handheld footage look smoother by reducing visible shake. Now, when it comes to stabilization, I choose the mode based on how I'm shooting. I use standard when I'm filming handheld to smoothen out small shakes, and if I'm filming on a tripod, I turn off stabilization because it crops into the image and reduces resolution. For shutter speed, I set it to the 180-degree shutter angle, which keeps motion blur looking natural, like the way we see it with our own eyes. This is crucial and is a big part that gives a video that cinematic look. A faster shutter speed reduces motion blur, making movements look crisp and unnatural. That said, shutter speed is also a creative choice, so don't limit yourself to the rule. Really experiment with it. Most of the time though, I keep it at 180-degree. Now, once I set the shutter to 180-degree, I make sure to lock it so that tapping on the screen only affects autofocus and not the shutter angle, which also affects exposure. Now, since I'm shooting in H.265 and not ProRes RAW, I stick to the lowest ISO because H.265 is a very compressed codec and higher ISOs can cause macro blocking. For white balance, I leave it in auto, but since lock white balance on record is enabled, it locks as soon as recording starts. The same applies to tint, which keeps the footage consistent. So here's how I set my exposure. I keep the shutter at 180-degree angle, which at 25 frames per second equals 1/50. A slower shutter speed also lets in more light, and with a low ISO, even then, you can get an overexposed shot. To fix this, use a variable ND filter, which reduces the light hitting the sensor. The one I recommend is the iPhone Pro Hybrid Filter Kit from Freewell, which includes a 1 to 5 stop VND with a built-in CPL and can expand up to 10 stops by adding an ND32. Now, false color is one of the most effective tools enables for getting proper exposure. It applies a color overlay to your image to indicate brightness levels. Purple and blue show underexposed area, with blue still containing some detail and purple fully crushed. Green represents middle gray, which is good reference for darker skin tones, while pink is ideal for lighter skin tones and what I typically use when filming myself. Yellow signals that highlights are close to clipping, and red confirms they're completely blown out. My approach is to expose for skin first, then check the rest of the frame to make sure I'm not losing important highlight detail. Now, like mentioned, for focus, I make sure my shutter angle is locked. This way, tapping the screen only triggers autofocus. Most of the time, I tap to focus, and if I want to lock focus, which also helps prevent focus hunting, I tap and hold until it says lock. Now, sometimes even if you tap on the subject, you may accidentally focus on the background instead, which is hard to see on a small screen. What you can do is pinch zoom to quickly check focus, but what's even better is to use focus assist, which I set to function 2. With this on, everything in green shows what's in focus, making it easy to spot sharp areas. You can also adjust the color and opacity of the overlay in the monitor settings. I also recommend enabling grid lines and the leveler. Grid lines enables the rule of thirds to better compose your shots. The leveler makes sure your horizon stays straight and not tilted. You'll know when the image is leveled when the cross turns blue. So now that we have all of the important settings dialed in, let's save them as a preset. This makes it easy to reload your preferred setup without adjusting everything again. From the camera viewer, go to the settings and scroll down to preset. I'll name this one 4K 25 frames per second H.265 and save it. Now, with the new Blackmagic Camera App 3.0 upgrade, you can also tap the 3 dots on the left, then tap the first icon at the top to display your presets. This menu not only lets you select presets, but also allows you to rename, delete, or update them. All right, folks, so these are the Blackmagic camera settings I use on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Now, let me know what settings you use, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below. Now, if you'd like to learn more about how to film and edit OpenGate ProRes RAW on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, be sure to check out this video right here that goes more in depth. Now, other than that, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for your support. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Take care and see you in the next video.